Well, good afternoon, Sridhar. It sure is good to see you.
Afternoon, Rob.
Yeah, we're
No,
speaking from
yeah,
across the United States to each other.
that's right. Yeah, 3 hour time difference.
Yeah, so it's a remote
Yes,
remote interview, and you're in sunny California, and I'm in sunny Georgia, kind of
good.
wet Georgia. But listen, I wanted to get right to you sharing with us. I think you were going to share about a particular season in your life. In fact, we might just start with you telling us when this time was, and then go right from there.
I would say, I can't be really precise
Uh huh.
because, and I will sort of connect it. I think it would be sort of, late 50s,
Okay.
early 60s as I was possibly, entering my teens, and getting to sort of put various things together,
Hmm.
which I had heard from others or actually observed myself. So I would say from around about 58, 59, 60 onwards, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean 1960. I should make that clear. Yeah.
Okay, and then you were living in India, correct?
I was living in Calcutta. I was born in Calcutta, and by way of background, I think this is very relevant
Yeah.
to what I'm going to share.
Okay.
Is that I was born 2 days before India became independent.
Ooh.
So I am one of, you could argue, midnight's children,
Uh huh.
as Salman Rushdie had written in his book.
Huh.
And there was a bunch of us, like the baby boomers currently, and I'm a baby boomer too,
Mm-hmm.
is we were brought up in what we expected to be a new India, a new independent,
Mm.
vibrant, India, which will eventually, we felt would be a leader in the world. So there was that feeling whether, which you imbibed and you were brought up and everybody talked about it, saying that, look, yeah, this is our time.
Right.
So that is so that actually sets the background for the optimism, the ups and downs, which we went through. You know.
Okay. And so you were independent from Britain, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
August 15th of 1947, and I was born on August 13th.
Okay. And so tell me, you were optimistic. Tell me about um, what you were optimistic about, I guess, in India.
I think basically, there was the feeling that, up to now we had somebody who, ruled the country. All of a sudden, we
Mm-hmm.
have our own leaders. Obviously, this was not something I would have thought about until maybe when I got into my teens, at the age of 13, which would be around 1960,
Okay. Uh huh.
but but I was brought up in that feeling that, hey, post independence, India was looking forward to, charting its own course in life.
Yeah.
And I think I was a great fan, even at a very early age, even maybe before that,
Hmm.
of our first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru.
Oh.
And I used to listen to his speeches. My, family had a recording
Uh
of
huh.
his speeches. Listen to his speech, especially his speech, on the day India got independence. You know, uh, that India's tryst with destiny was the way he put it. On that Independence Day from Red Fort in Delhi. And that always stuck with me is that we are a country which has a tryst with destiny, and that it was up to me to actually feel both proud about it and in whatever way I can enable it. So there's a great feeling of optimism in
Yeah.
India for people who were born around the same time as me.
And I guess at that time too, you're a young man, probably thinking about your future, right?
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
starting to think about your future, and with all the possibilities, I imagine that was a really exciting time.
yeah, yeah. It
Yeah.
was, and I said it was not just me.
Yeah.
All of us felt, there was, when we walked anywhere, there was a, there was a step, which we felt, and we
Mm-hmm.
felt good. We felt
Wow.
good about ourselves. We felt good about where we were headed, and so it was a general from the country, and to put it in perspective of what I would call the world, we really in the world. There is the what I would call uh, the Western Alliance and the rise of communism. And we knew that, being a young country, much an independent course, whereby we realized, but we should not get in between those fights and sort of, be work with both of them was to be totally neutral. And that was shaped to a certain extent by my admiration for Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, because he was one of the originators of what was then called the non-aligned movement with and Gamal Abdul Nasser.
Non-aligned, does that mean neutral?
India, I don't know. It is only I cannot vouch for it, but I think when India became independent, obviously one way, NATO, it had CENTO called SEATO, which is the Southeast Asian Treaty Organization, and India most probably did that, but decided not to join. And now the normal thing would have been that India then said, okay, if Pakistan is aligning itself with the US, then we've got to be the Russians in some shape or form. To what I would call, in a way that we did accept that, both that they were good in both isms. We decided we could have done that, but we decided to stay independent and say, look, we cannot join any of these groups, and the best thing is to chart an independent course. At that time, because a lot of the countries all came, what I would call, got independence around this period of time. So they're all struggling with, how to. The focus was inwards in getting their people to have a better life, but you needed partners. The question was, who do you join, and how close is that hug that you give each other?
I understand.
Yeah. And Nehru was very much for the non-aligned, movement, and so maybe because of that, I may have been overly influenced, in saying that was the good thing for India.
And so this was the early 60s.
Early 60s, yeah. Well, it started from very soon after independence. I think, India decided to go the non-aligned course.
And so what did you think about the rest of the world? I mean, obviously you were excited about India.
I think, fortunately I was brought up in a family which was very open, in thinking. So the outside influences were always there. So we were never ever very myopic or, just thought about India. We put India in the context of the world. So in fact, I think even our education system in those days, I used to compare and contrast that with other countries. Our education system, basically taught us world history first before focusing. We had as much knowledge about, at school about, the Magna Carta, the American War of Independence, as much as our own sort of history, going back to, our kings and emperor. Or maybe it was just my natural interest in those areas, that we thought of India in the context of the world, So we knew about, the US. By the time I got to realize, mid-50s, most probably Eisenhower was president, and the war had just ended, maybe 10 years earlier. And so I was not all that focused on the US, under Eisenhower. Know very little about him other than his name, and that he was a very famous general who, led the, Allies during. Other than that, I don't think I had much interest in, the US. Same with Russia. The only thing with Russia, I would say, is that, both Khrushchev and Brezhnev did come to Calcutta. And I, like every other young kid, stood on the streets, waved the Indian flag as they drove past in their motorcade. So at least I was, aware of them. I was aware of the, what I would call the space race, which actually started with the Russians putting their first person, first the dog Laika, and then, their first space person, Yuri Gagarin, I think it was, who went around the world once. And I remember Yuri Gagarin and Valentina Tereshkova driving past our house, on the way to a rally. So those were the sort of mixed memories of those days.
Mm-hmm.
Kennedy, to a certain extent, and when he came, and I don't know how I got interested in Kennedy, but I think
did he come to visit?
He didn't come. I didn't. He didn't come. But Jackie, I think, at some point did come to India. And again was greeted by, I think Nehru was still alive at that time. But Kennedy, I had seen sort of all Indian cinemas in the old days. When you went to see an Indian movie, it was black and white.
Mm-hmm.
But all Indian movies, and I don't know if it was the same in the US, before the movie, they would have something called Pathé News or Cine News or something.
Oh, yeah.
And they would do a, 10, 15-minute summary before every movie of world news.
Of course.
So all movies started with news because there was no television
in
India in those days.
Yeah.
So I most probably picked that up.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, I also had a friend of my brother's who was, a director of the. So I used to go, and they had books and others, and I used to be an avid reader in those days. Mm-hmm. So I would go and read in the library, and pick up, Time Magazine, or Newsweek, and that's how I got sort of connected to Kennedy, and of course, didn't focus so much, on the election, his election, except the fact that I did follow through my Time Magazine, reading about, being Roman Catholic and whether that the U.S. would accept a Roman Catholic as a president. But then I had also said that he's a war hero. Mm-hmm. He appeared energetic. He had as I said, they talk about Camelot.
Yeah, he was young and handsome.
He was young. Mm-hmm. He had a very charming family. Mm-hmm. And of course, what got me totally over, what I would call a very avid fan, was the speech at the inauguration when he said that ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Wow. And that appealed to what I would call the sense of service that my parents had inculcated in all of us, sure. At a very early age. Yeah. We immediately said, hey, this person, is not putting the cart before the horse, He knows how, what is required of every citizen, So that was very, very motivating,
I can see why that would ring true with you too, of course, with your new country, new freedoms, with all the hope that you had.
Yeah.
He might as well have been speaking to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you ask not just me, my recollection would be everywhere in the world, people of my age group, if you say that what got them interested in politics, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people would put Kennedy, in their first three, reasons for why they became active.
I think you're right. Sorry, my phone just made a noise. That was
Not
bad.
to worry.
That was bad planning on my part.
Yeah.
And so you're primarily, though, the way that you got news and I guess learned about Kennedy was you would see the newsreels before the movies, and then did you mention Time Magazine too?
Time Magazine. Time Magazine was my source of news about the U.S. So
oh my gosh! What about how did you process his assassination? I mean,
that was really tough, and I think I very, very clearly recall. Obviously, because of the time difference, we did not know when it occurred.
Oh, okay.
But I did go back and check the dates. I think he died, around 2:00, or was shot around 2:00.
Yeah.
On a Friday, on a Friday, which was by that time Saturday in India.
Oh.
But I have this vivid memory, and I don't know whether I just concocted this vision out of nowhere, but I have this vivid memory of walking in the morning, to the bus stop and looking at a newsstand, and there was this big sign which said, Kennedy assassinated.
Oh.
My assumption is that by the time it happened on Saturday, the Saturday newspapers in India would have been printed. The Sunday, we most probably didn't. I wouldn't have been walking anywhere that time in the morning. So it must have been a Monday when I was headed to school and going to the bus stop. So it must have been a Monday morning newspaper that I saw, and it was like a wow, and I think a lot of us, when we went back to school, but I remember, that afternoon, in the evening, I did end up at the United States Information Service to sign the condolence book. They had opened up a condolence book for anybody who wanted to come and sign. And I recall going there and signing my name.
Oh, what a fantastic thing! I wonder if they would even do something like that today.
Oh yeah. I think it's fairly common.
Yeah.
That the local embassy or the local, what I would call affiliate of an embassy, would open up a book for people to come and pay their respects, because you can't do it directly.
That's really. I mean, for me to think about people in India taking their time to go and sign that book for an American president.
Yeah. And amazing enough, I sometimes wonder because sometimes I keep things. I'm wondering whether that condolence book is somewhere there in some archives.
Yeah. Right. See,
it would be nice to go and find it. I know.
I'm the same way.
What I wrote.
I mean, obviously, we're doing this recording right now, and by the way, I think we ought to start wrapping up just for this session.
Okay.
But our purpose is to keep this, to have a record of it. I feel that I really enjoyed getting to know you. Thanks for sharing that time with us.
I can sort of take the next sort of U.S. Sort of my life.
Well, there certainly is. There's about 10 years where there was a lot going on.
We can talk separately after the assassination. Kent State, the Chicago Convention. There's a whole bunch of stuff, which I still reflect, and they're source of inspiration, in some of these things, for me.
Well, good. Let's do that. And I look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Okay. All right, Rob.
Okay. Well, take care.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.